And I'm back. Exciting, right? It was very easy. I just had a wrong idea. So the issue I had was that, and I thought this might have been the issue, I just didn't want to fuck with it on screen, is that I had set the base object to overlap all, but I hadn't set the actual object with the collider attached to it. So this, for example, I had this part set to overlap all and generate overlap events, see? But I needed it to be this guy, which I had instead set to trigger volume and hadn't clicked on generate overlap events. In fact, it's still set to trigger, but as long as I've got that generate overlap events actually checked, we're good. That hasn't actually solved this issue though. We're still working on this one here. So as I recall, we have cast this into a specific carved up cube. A sliced mesh of this? No, I got a version of this, but I don't know where I put it. What would it be called? It would be called a slice mesh tutorial or something similar. No, it would probably be called a procedural proc mesh. There it is. I don't know where it is, but now it's here in the screen. And what we would like is for this to be able to have those collision events. And previously, I was screwing around with this top level thing and trying to get that to be doing the work. And that's probably why it didn't ever work, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here into the component, and we're going to set that up. So here we're going to set this up as an overlap all with generating events. Actually, we're going to set this up to a block all with because I want to be able to tell right away that we are colliding with it, and we're not. Damn it. Now that could be because this proc mesh isn't set up to do anything. Look at this. It's got it set to block all on both of these. It could be that this mesh is not set up properly with the collisions that we need. Even though that should have been set because that was set on the object. Yeah, okay, so now that works. So it does work. There was nothing wrong with it except for my own stupidity. And I don't even want to call it stupidity. It was just me not understanding exactly how this system works. So the next thing is to get this bad boy to do it. This bad boy is, of course, being procedurally generated as we speak. If we look down here into this procedural mesh, you can see it set up to block all. See that? And that's where the trouble begins, because even though it's set to block all, it's not blocking shit. And I think the reason for that is because the collision mesh isn't properly set up. It should be set up to be a use complex as simple right here. And so here's the disconnect. If we're using the complex as simple, then why isn't it actually firing? One possibility is that this cube is somehow interfering, but I don't know why that would happen. It's set to no collision at all. So if we're using... So once we actually set this with a create static mesh, this becomes false. So I'm wondering whether or not there's something wrong with this option. It's not doing what I think it's doing, something like that. This is the one that works, and this is the one that doesn't work. I mean, I just don't get this. Which of the many things is causing this to not properly engage? I can't imagine that's going to do jack. Krabatsky says that they couldn't do it any better. Well, if you could do it any better, let me know immediately what I'm doing wrong here. There's something about a procedural mesh. No, though, that's a spawning. That's not going to do anything. That's not an issue. That's during level streaming. That shouldn't be an issue. And this is also the base object, not the collider specifically. Update overlaps method unloaded in. So that's a level streaming shit. And then this is the base object, which I don't believe matters either. There is some collision data for it. Here is our cube, which is not part of the deal. So, what happens if we disable this and just try it like that? This should definitely not work. Just gonna cover all our bases here. So it doesn't matter whether that value is set or not. It will continue to ignore collisions. Why? Is the root component a scene component? It is. Should it be a different kind of component? Should it be an actor? Well, that's probably it, isn't it? Let's go ahead and give that a shot then. So what we're going to do is we are going to switch out that particular setup for a different one. And I don't know whether I can change that on the fly. I think I might have to create a new... Can we? Can we... I don't see any easy option here to change this to a different... I think we're going to have to start over here. So what is this descended from? It's a blueprint class. It says it's descended from type actor, parent class actor. So I couldn't do it better than that. I mean, if I can, then it's something else. So although this object is descended from a scene object, it is an actor. Krabatsky says, yes, I think so, or a uprimitive component. But this over here is also a scene object. Well, that's a static mesh, cube blueprint, static mesh actor. That works. And this over here is also... So these are custom... These are static mesh descendants rather than... And then over here we got this guy. Well, that's actually the object inside that one. So you're making a good point here. These are not actors. These are static mesh components. It's possible that having the base as an actor, just a generic actor, might be an issue. I'm not sure. Let's try it. So it's not one of the commons, so I'm thinking that maybe that's the wrong tack, the wrong thing to be worried about. I mean, we can obviously make it something a little bit more static. Might as well try it. No big deal. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So if we take a look at the static mesh actor, call this a static mesh slice test. And we'll just pop that open here, and we will add ourselves some objects. We'll just make this... I don't really know exactly what we're doing here, so we're going to go ahead and add in the procedural. And then we're going to add in another static mesh. We could just make it the same static mesh, I suppose, but we'll do it this way. And to just create this construction script, all we're going to need to do is create procedural. It's not create procedural, is it? It's clone procedural? No. Copy procedural? Yeah, there it is. And then, of course, we're going to copy from this guy and put it in this person. Now, one of the other issues it might be is that it might be inheriting the do not collide, even though it says it's not. We're going to have to find out here. So basically, this contains a lot of options, as you can see. And if we have a no collision setup here, it's possible the static mesh is going to... it's possible this procedural mesh... Yeah, okay, I got it backwards. Let's click on the wrong thing. Because in the other version of this, the procedural mesh is on the bottom. It's not that big a deal here. Just move this so that I can actually remember here. We're going to set this up to a block all. And then this will stay there. And we're not even going to bother to slice it today. We are just going to turn this off so that we don't see it. And then we will just drop this static mesh slice test into the game world. And you can see that we're not getting anything out of it. Did I turn off the procedural mesh visual? No, it's there. Hold on, I can't see this I can't see either one. Are they in a weird spot? No. Oh yes, they're offset. Why can't I see the static mesh? Oh, because I never assigned it. Obviously, I should be telling this to be a custom cube. What? Oh, that's the physics override material. Here it is. All right, one more time. That's better. So, we have two objects here. The procedural mesh is floating above the other one because I moved it. And so we're going to see whether or not that works. Basically, can we bump our head on that top mesh? I can't reach that top mesh. All right, let's move the whole thing down. And there it is. All right, look at that. I can bump it. So now let's cut it and see whether or not it maintains when slicing. Grabatsky is giving me some kind of beard face. I'm not really sure what they're trying to say about that. But if you have advice, I am certainly open for it. I do not know very much about what is going on here. And we'll go ahead and set this to be Lake. And then we'll save it and compile it. And then we'll just... so the bottom one here is the block that we're cloning. The question is, where is our... oh, see, there it is. I did this backwards. This needs to be -2, perhaps. I want this to be a place where I can see it. How about 50? Ah, there we are. That's better. See how that gets sliced? That's what we're looking for here. And so what we're going to do is make sure that we understand that it is a slice like this, and then we're going to go see if we can step on it. Oh, look at that. Once we slice it, it immediately becomes intangible. So it's the slicing operation that damages the procedural mesh's collision. Krabatsky says they've never done anything in Unreal. Oh well. Alright, so the core of this problem is that, first, I didn't understand the basics of collision in the first place. But there's also a difference between basic collisions and procedural meshes. It appears that procedural meshes are not properly inheriting collision when they're marked as sliced. Which is strange, because they're marked as use complex as simple, and they're marked as block all. So in theory, this should work. And it works when I create a copy of that mesh. But when I create a copy of that mesh, the default for that copied mesh is wrong. Which makes me think that under the hood here, the default is wrong. Let's go ahead and give it one little shot here. Procedural mesh. Clone it. Where it is. We're going to go ahead and call this proc mesh blich. And I'll just pop it in here. Here's the plot proc mesh blich. And if we were to go over to plot, if we were to go over to it, we would find ourselves walking straight through it. Because even though it's cloned from a mesh where all those values were turned on, in truth, they have been turned back off. And we can't actually see that from here. We have to go into the proc mesh to see that. Nope, that's the wrong one. There. Now, once we've done that, we can climb it. Boom. See? We can't climb it. It's too slippery. But we can bounce off of it. And so I'm thinking that the problem here is Ob says, what's the stats of the scuba game? Oh, that got destroyed. I had a catastrophic computer failure like, a year ago now. And since then, I haven't done anything. Right now, I'm trying to learn Unreal. And we're working with a particularly obnoxious little issue. So if the case is that this is not using the right kind of collision, maybe we can manually set the collision. There's the get. But that's an output only. I can only see it. I can't set it. Well, let's go ahead and use a write. I don't know. That sounds annoying. I don't know. Don't know how to do this. I think this procedural mesh isn't a procedural mesh, and that's the problem here. Make editable mesh? I think it already is. My guess is that editable mesh is a different kind of mesh than a procedural mesh. Magic Leap. Yeah, so add collision convex mesh is something I tried, Kerbatsky, and it requires me to send it an array of verts. But I don't know where to get an array of verts. So if I were to add the collision convex mesh here, and put it over here, it won't even let me compile it because it requires me to pass this convex verts array. And I don't know how to do that because I have a procedural mesh. I don't know what the verts of that procedural mesh are, and even if I did, they're not guaranteed to be convex. Collision info is also updated. This allows me to manually fill the procedural mesh with verts and normals of my own creation, which isn't what I need at the moment. Set custom primitive data. Hmm. All right, let's look up one more thing here. Unreal procedural convex collider. As long as you can, long as you can define your collision using an aggregate of simple shapes. Oh, for fuck's sake. This guy, oh, man, whenever you ask a question about Unreal, even if you're asking it of like developers that are professional, like on squad Unreal Engine devs, they'll always answer with something incredibly like nitty gritty. Like the other day, I wanted to know how to make it so that. Oh, here I'll show you. I was here in this mode. That's fine. I was here in this mode, and I was like, okay, well, I want to actually be able to move around this world in like a normal editor way, so that I can see what's going up during play mode. And so I was looking that up, and people were like, oh, well, then you need to make it so that you're spawning a different kind of character model, or blah, 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 blah. And the real answer is, you fucking hit F8. And it's hopefully the same situation here. I'm like, how can I set this to have the correct procedural collider? And the answer is apparently you need to create your own C class that has its own derived collider data model. And it's like, what? No. But this is from 2014. Jesus. Well, according to this thing from 2017, it is in fact this exact same issue that I thought it was, where it's not actually using the complex as simple, even though it's flagged as using it. So I'm not really sure what to do. I mean, it's set pretty obviously here. I can't set it in blueprints. In blueprints, I can only get it. I can't set it. So I don't really know what to do. Why can't I set the value? Why does it refuse to let me set the value? Can I get the value by dragging it? Here, I'll put this on the screen so you can see it. Ob says, try looking for convex hull. Well, I mean, there's only a couple of convex things here. And they're both the same. So there's no separate convex hull option for the procedural mesh. But it might be possible to... Can I not? I guess that's a Godot thing, being able to drag variables onto the graph. That sure would be nice, though, because clearly you can set this value. It just doesn't seem to work. Um... Phew. I can't imagine this will do anything, but we'll give it a shot. No, of course not. This is a toughie. So the issue here is that if I'm cutting water like this, obviously I want the player to be able to splash through it. And I can't even determine where the top of the water is if I can't get that collider information. That's kind of why collider information exists. So I have a feeling this is something that that should be easy. It's something where I can't figure out why this would be so obnoxious and not work. The only thing I can think of is that it's just not updating the collider. But it's not giving me any collision. By default, so here, look. If we were to just delete this, I can't remember how to delete it without doing that. If we were to do that and not actually cut the mesh, then we have this, come on, just this box. Why isn't it just a box? This is interesting. Why is it still cutting? Oh my gosh, I'm in the wrong fucking... Okay, so part of the reason is I'm a friggin' idiot. Okay, so we're looking at the static mesh slice test, which is this bad boy. And that might be why we were having an issue. Oh my god. Okay, back it up, Craig. I've been doing a lot of work presuming that I was in the right place, and I wasn't. So, let's take a look. This still has the correct collision information, and it's still set to block all. And it's got two objects in it, the static mesh and the procedural mesh. Unlike our previous object, the static mesh is not set to invisible. I'll change that right. No, it is. Okay, so the static mesh slice test. Let's go ahead and close some of this down so that we don't make that mistake again. The biggest difference between the static mesh slice test and the one we were working on, that I thought we were working on at least, is that the static mesh slice test is a different base class. It's not an actor, it's a static mesh. And that was the one where I got it to work when it was like this. Is this it over here? I think it is. Boom. See how I'm bouncing off of that? This is the mesh in question. This is the one we need to make work. And once I reconnect the slicing, like so. Why isn't it slicing? Oh, there it is. Okay. Something wrong with the slicing? It's a weird situation we've got going on here. Oh, I just am not using... I'm using the lake material, or I should be. Interesting. Doesn't really matter. So once it's sliced, we walk straight through it. See that? So my assumption here is that when it's sliced, it errors. It's something about the collider doesn't get properly updated. Now, even though it clearly says that the procedural meshes are experimental, it's been around for like 6 years, 7 years. And you'd think it would have done something basic like Oh yeah, I want people to be able to bump into these procedural meshes. Um, let's try this. Let's just click this and see whether anything changes. No, of course not. Krabowski says that I could add another collision shape, but that's not what I want, right? Yeah, well, the problem is if I add a collision shape, it's going to be the shape of the original box. And that means that I'll collide with it even when I'm not actually colliding with the sliced part. And that's definitely no good. So the question is, how can I get a collision mesh out of this procedural mesh? One of the problems I've got is that it doesn't appear like I'm able to get a stream of verts out of a collision mesh. But let me check something before we go any further. This bad boy over here is the ProcMesh tutorial. No, that's not it. That's the static one. Here, the slice mesh tutorial here. There we are. I want to try something with this before we go any further, and that is I'm going to disable. How do you disable? I don't know. I don't know how to remove links without like creating a new link between them and then deleting it. So what I've done is I've just disabled the cut, and I've made it so that it's not cutting, and you can see that it works. So it's not because of its base class. It's, I believe it's actually this one over here. Either one works. They're both clearly responding properly. It's not because of the base class. It's something where whether it's an actor or a static mesh component, it works fine. It's just that once you slice it, it stops working. This here fails to generate a usable collision mesh off of the other half. So there are a couple of ideas we have in how this might work. Let's go ahead and take a look. Unreal procedural mesh get verts. Well, this is like a whole bunch of C code. You'd be amazed at how little I want to get into the C code here. Is there a... That's an undo buffer, not a vertex buffer. Why am I not allowed to get the array out of this mesh? In theory, a mesh should be able to tell me what its verts are and what its UVs are. That's kind of why it exists, right? Let's take a look here. UV. Can I get the UVs out of it? No, of course not. Okay. So in C, you can apparently access the vertex buffer very straightforwardly. Blueprint node released. Access all vertex locations in any static mesh. Well, it's not really a static mesh, is it? But this is from 2014. I don't think we're going to go with that. It appears that there is no commentary on this subject. Krabatsky is sending me a PNG. Oh, okay. So it looks like he's found something interesting. I presume it's a he. So it looks like there is a get section from static mesh. There's a get section from procedural mesh. Oh, hey, look, this might be what I needed. Why is it called section? Strange. Okay, so look, this is might be it. Let's try it. Great work. You hunted it down for me. Thanks a ton to Krabatsky. So this gives me like verts and triangles and normals and shit. And if I were to, the problem is I'm not sure which section index we're talking about, but if I were to then do a convex collision mesh, it might be possible to just pass at these verts and hope for the best. Let's try it. That is with the static mesh slice test, which is not the tutorial object. So we're going to delete the tutorial object and look at the static mesh slice test. There it is. The other one is over here. Both of these should be the same. They shouldn't be any different. So we'll go ahead and see what's on it. No, it didn't work. Okay, so hold on. Did it not work for a reason? Let's find out. If we were to... look at that. Okay, so this is something I brought up in my tutorial video. A lot of people say you need the CPU access toggle turned on. That's not true, but it might be true if you need to have colliders. So let's try it out. We're going to go ahead and turn on that CPU access toggle. Okay, so that didn't do jack shit. But we're no longer getting an error. It just isn't working. Boy, that is weird. That cut plane doesn't seem right. I'm not sure what I did with this particular thing, but it's not doing what you might think. So there's a lot of reasons why this might not work. But one of the things we might do, close this down. One of the things we might do is stop this. How do I get rid of... I don't know how to get rid of a connection. So what we're going to do is we are going to get rid of that. Now that we have the CPU access turned on, we're just going to check. No, it didn't fix anything. I was just checking to see whether or not maybe it would have worked. Let's turn off the async cooking and see whether or not that might be the issue. No, of course not. So I can get the values now. I can get the convex mesh set up, but it doesn't appear to be working. One of the things that might not be working is the section might be wrong. Because the sections are probably split according to... no, that didn't work either. The sections are probably split according to whether or not they're the base mesh or the slice. But it doesn't appear like either one of these options works. I'm not actually sure that this will work. But it worked. See, this is actually giving us the data that we want. So I don't know how many sections there are. There should only be 2. Alright, so I can't seem to get this to do anything. I can't seem to get it to work even when people track down these ideas, these objects that I thought would work. So there is one more thing to test, and that is if we skip the slicing, what happens? So if we just have these as giant boxes here, what exactly happens? Okay, so if we have them as giant boxes, at the very least, the add collision data doesn't malfunction. I can't tell you whether it's working or not, because I can't tell, because it would have fine collision either way. But I can tell you that it's not actively sabotaging anything. So the question becomes, what can we do about this? I can't get this to work, period. It just isn't working. There's no data being generated here. I suppose what I should do is register for the Unreal forums and then go whine on the forums, or at least search the forums and ask them. Let's take a look here. If I were to go into here and Unreal forum. So take a look here. Content creation, animation, rendering, blueprint, datasmith, C++, editor scripting, VR, development, Android, HTML, architectural and design, community crap, international stuff. Okay, well, if we just search for that's not how you spell it. Dang. Procedural mesh collision. Let's see if anybody's ever asked any questions about this. Apparently, it thinks that I am okay as long as any of those words exist in the results. Rather than being an and, it is an or. What an awesome decision on their part. Makes it completely useless to even try. Jeez. Okay, so let's take a look. Here's someone talking about something similar. Oh, and nobody's responded. Brilliant. In Blueprints, I can create a mesh section and add it to a procedural mesh component. It gets its own section index, and if I check create collision, now just to be sure I'm not a friggin' tool, move. Yeah, so I've got that already checked. But he says that touching any of the blocks, because he's not slicing them, he's just adding them. It's slicing them that's causing the problems. Well, what if we were to use the add that's not really what we want. There is a way to add a section to it. I just don't know what the phrase is because this guy didn't use the phrase correctly. Set procedural, clear all, clear, copy, create mesh sections. Probably this one. So let's go ahead and try just brute forcing it. Just like, screw you, do what I say, brute forcing it. Because if this guy can get a good response off of created mesh sections, is it target? Yeah, the target's correct. Then in theory, we should be able to... Why is this a different color? Well, I guess it's because it's linked. That's fine. In theory, we should be able to trick it into generating the values we want. Like this. Let's try it. Why would I want to install Visual Studio? Here we go. I'll hit play. fucking hell. Oh. I did it. We did it. I would never have managed to figure that out without all your help, because damn, that's stupid. Okay, so what we've done is we found a bug in Unreal, and I don't know exactly where that bug is. Krabatsky is trying to give me more advice, but you know what? We solved it. We solved it. This guy, he's sent me an alternate approach where he sets the collision as enabled. We might as well try that because it's certainly cheaper than getting and setting the section over and over and over again. So if we just take a look at collision enabled, let's go ahead and just set that first, and then we will try this again because this works. But I'm 90% sure I already tried this. We're going to give it a shot, though. So this is the object. We're just going to make sure that it's been reformulated. Nope. But the good news is that your earlier trick of getting the section works great, because all we have to do is trick it into overwriting itself with itself. This isn't necessary. The problem here is that when we slice it, the slice function does not properly trigger the regeneration of the collider. And I don't know why that is. But we can trick it into generating that collider anew if we just tell it to create itself. Take all the data from the first slot of your mesh and put it in the first slot of your mesh. Oh, okay, great. I understand how to do that. Obviously, you want me to generate a collider now, right? Yeah, fucking thanks. What a mess. Now, it's my assumption that that is a bug in the procedural mesh slice function. It's possible that it's not. It's possible that it's on purpose. But since there's no way for me to meaningfully tell it to regenerate the collision mesh as its own, collision mesh node, there's no way for me to get that slice function to actually work as intended. But we can always brute force it. And the only reason I thought of this is because Unity has the same problem. I can't tell you the number of times I had to manually tell Unity to update the collision mesh after editing a mesh because it wasn't getting marked dirty properly. This is the same issue. The only difference is that in Unity you're using code for everything. So in practice with a node setup like this, there's not really a link to the functions I was using. I can't set this mesh as dirty. Actually, I should check that. Maybe I can. Dirty. I can mark a property as dirty. But I don't know what property I would mark as dirty. But I think that this is for propagation. Yeah, this is for propagation across the network, not for internal eventing. So that it's okay. This works. I am perfectly happy with this. It's stupid, but it works. So the next step here is to switch this over from a block all to an overlap all, like this. And now we should be able to get events on our event graph like this. So we're going to go ahead and I don't really know what we're going to want to do. We'll just go ahead and set location, I guess. Boom. No, not that one. I'm always missing that one thing there. And we'll make sure that we're getting both of these values out of it. We're going to set it to 1,000 again. 1,000. Make sure to set that as a teleport. Save and compile. Close that, because hopefully we won't need it anymore. And then we walk over here and go pop, 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 pop. Works great. Now what I can do from here is I can create a method of splashing in the water. Because I know where we're colliding with, and I know where we are relative to it, I should be able to to tell how, how much depth we are in the water and a couple of other values like that. I won't know for sure until I try it, but I'm pretty sure that there are collider functions that allow me to test for, closest on edge and stuff like that. So if I were to, for example, take this guy's head and say, where's the closest point on the collider to this guy's head, I would be able to tell how far up the water is coming. And that's the theory. But I'm not going to do that. Well, I guess I could do that on stream. It's only been an hour. But I haven't worked that out yet. I want to go ahead and try to do a little bit of that off screen first. Thanks a ton, Krabatsky. You were a tremendous help. And I will see some of you on Saturday or next Wednesday, depending on when you're available. I'm going to go and celebrate with some ice cream. Bye.